In this video essay, I will discuss how the Star Wars franchise influenced the representation of gender, class, race, and sexuality in cinema. In 1977, George Lucas's vision of the Star Wars franchise was launched with the original trilogy, which included Star Wars A New Hope from 1977, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back from 1980, Star Wars Return of the Jedi from 1983. They all released simultaneously in cinemas around the world. Influencing the inclusion of different races, genders, classes, and sexuality in cinema, Star Wars A New Hope featured a woman, and Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, a person of colour, in lead roles, with Carrie Fisher and Billy Dee Williams appearing as Leia and Lando respectively. Star Wars as a franchise challenged racial, cultural, and gender stereotypes, which is considered commonplace in modern Hollywood filmmaking, in particular big-budget films that appeal to a broader audience. But how did this come to be? Before we can understand how the Star Wars franchise may have revolutionised the representation of race, gender, class, and sexuality in cinema, we must first have a scope of what it was like prior. Cinema often reflected the social norms and biases the general public projected. Before the release of Star Wars A New Hope in 1977, characters of race, gender, class, and sexuality were often relegated to supporting roles or depicted stereotypically as projected by the audience, while females were portrayed as less brave and more dependent. Lead roles were typically portrayed by white actors, while multiracial persons were underrepresented and assigned to supporting and/or stereotypical roles. This was because movie producers are often reluctant to cast more than a few minority actors in otherwise race-neutral movies for the fear that the white audience would largely avoid such films. This is demonstrated in the classic film Breakfast at Tiffany's from 1961, with the role of Mr. Yunushi, a buck-toothed man with a loud, thick Asian accent, played by the Anglo-Saxon actor Mickey Rooney.
Mr. Go right way. Someday, Mr. Go right way.
Rooney's portrayal of Mr. Yunioshi epitomises ethnic stereotypes, an act frowned upon in modern-day productions. But at the time of the classic film's release in 1961, Hollywood already had a long history of casting white actors in Asian roles, a tradition known as yellowface. As late as the 1960s and 1970s, films including the James Bond film Dr. No from 1962 and Superman from 1978 continued to depict major female characters as damsels in distress. Class was often represented with characters depicting the American dream of wealth and privilege, not struggles of the working class. Films like The Godfather from 1972 portrayed themes of wealth and power. Sexual relationships were portrayed as monogamous and heterosexual, with interracial, homosexual, and LGBTQI+ relationships underrepresented. The representation of race, gender, class, and sexuality in film lacked progression towards inclusiveness before the release of Star Wars A New Hope in 1977. Now we have an understanding of the representation of minority groups in film. We will discuss the impact that the Star Wars franchise had on diversity and inclusiveness. When the Star Wars film franchise hit cinemas in 1977, audiences had never experienced representation of race, gender, class, and sexuality in film quite like this before. It was innovative and brave enough to challenge the traditional social norms and stereotypes of minority groups. George Lucas introduced lead characters of minority throughout the original trilogy, including Princess Leia and Lando Calrissian. The Star Wars franchise often included representation and challenges by subverting the audience's expectations. Princess Leia subverts the audience's expectations by suddenly challenging the damsel in distress stereotype by taking over her own rescue upon believing her own rescuers to be incompetent.
What the hell are you doing?
Somebody has to save our skins. Into the garbage, you flyboy!
This challenge is extremely significant as it came at a time when strong female characters were underrepresented and plagued by the damsel in distress trope. Leia leads the rebellion against the evil empire, portraying a powerful female character in a lead role, which at the time was not heard of. Billy D. Williams' portrayal of Lando Calrissian in Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back from 1980 was a step forward in the representation of racially diverse characters in a leading role. As late as the 1970s, it was still rare for a black actor subverting the audience's expectations, as Lando is initially thought to be a villain. This representation was significant as most audiences never considered the issues of lack of stereotypical racial portrayal, only when the film was about a racial or ethnic minority group. The Star Wars franchise continued to develop characters of race and gender after the original trilogy, including Padme and Mace Windu in the prequel trilogy films Star Wars The Phantom Menace from 1999, Star Wars Attack of the Clones from 2002, and Star Wars Revenge of the Sith from 2005. Padme was a female senator in a position of power, while Mace Windu was a black Jedi. The Star Wars sequel trilogy films, Star Wars The Force Awakens from 2015, Star Wars The Last Jedi from 2017, and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker from 2019, continued this innovation with the introduction of Rey and Finn as equal lead characters, Rey being a strong female character and Finn a strong black character. The sequel trilogy also introduced Rose Tico, the first lead character in the Star Wars franchise to be portrayed as an Asian American. The Star Wars franchise also innovated the representation of class by demonstrating the conflict between the Rebel Alliance and the Galactic Empire, the conflict between the wealthy oppressive Empire and the stateless coalition of rebels struggling against the tyranny of the Empire, represents the struggles of the lower class against the upper class. Whilst not as innovative or represented as much as gender, race and class are, the Star Wars sequel trilogy did include a small LGBTQI+ nod with a same-sex kiss in a celebration scene. Through the introduction of strong female characters, characters of colour, representation of the lower class and the LGBTQI+ community, the Star Wars film series innovated inclusiveness of gender, race, sexuality and class in film. The groundbreaking impact and influence on the representation of race, gender, class and sexuality in cinema following the release of the Star Wars franchise could be felt throughout the film industry. The increased use of representation in film helped explore how our understanding, values and beliefs about race, class, gender and sexual orientation are constructed. This incredibly influential approach can be felt in modern blockbusters, in which Princess Leia's character has paved the way for strong female characters in film, including Hermione Granger in the Harry Potter film series, 2001 to 2011, the Black Widow in Black Widow, 2021, and Furiosa in Mad Max Fury Road from 2015. Class is strongly represented in modern films such as Parasite from 2019, which deals with individuals of lower socio-economic demographic, while films like Crazy Rich Asians from 2018 and The Wolf of Wall Street from 2013 portray characters from an upper-class socio-demographic. Whilst there was only one single sexual reference to LGBTQ+ relationships in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker from 2019, it still had made an impact on inclusiveness in film. Several films were released shortly thereafter featuring an LGBTQI+ character, including the major blockbusters Eternals from 2021, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness from 2022, and the major animated film Lightyear from 2022. The lack of gender, race, class and sexually diverse representation in films prior to 1977, it can be considered that the Star Wars franchise has certainly been attributed to influencing the introduction of strong lead characters from diverse backgrounds in cinema.